Hill to do something about record-high gas prices. AAA reports the average is $4.24 a gallon. House Democrats are proposing $100 energy rebates every month that fuel was on average more than $4. At least 3 states, including Georgia, Maryland, and Connecticut, have already suspended their gas tax. In the Golden State, where fuel costs are highest, California's Governor Gavin Newsom wants to give drivers $400.
We have a lot of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, and SSDI. Continue watching this video because you don't want to miss out on it. Americans already faced searing inflation when gas prices surged to an all-time high early this year. Lawmakers want the federal government to offer stimulus payments or rebate checks to help reduce the pain at the pump. And also, if the nation's average gas price exceeds $4 a gallon, well, families with 2 children could get as much as $300 a month. The plan was proposed by Representatives Mike Thompson and Lauren Underwood. The lawmakers said in a statement that the gas stimulus would provide middle-class Americans with monthly payments just to ease the financial burden of this global crisis. Under the bill, both joint and single tax filers will receive $100 each, while each dependent would also receive $100. In other words, a family with 2 kids could receive up to $300 a month in rebate checks. The plan would work similarly to the 3 stimulus checks from the federal government that was sent out early this year, last year, and of course in 2020. What we can say is that the payments were aimed at low and middle income households. Single people earning less than $75,000 got a full $100 or even more in stimulus cash. Now the checks will be phased out for people earning above a certain level, because American consumers could see increased cost of $2,000 this year due to the recent surge in gas prices. That's on top of an extra $1,000 in grocery store costs due to the steepest rise in inflation since '82. Consumers are reporting they are cutting back on spending and driving less, while most blaming shock at the pump and the prices that are just insane. But friends, global oil prices have fallen again 35% in June, and some of the major companies and economies have already signaled that they're headed toward a recession. This helped push down gas prices a bit more for American drivers. According to the Emergency Energy Information Administration, crude oil prices are the biggest driver of U.S. gas. Global prices have fallen despite the OPEC group, and now there are 2 other proposals in Congress that will provide some financial help to Americans. Rocano would provide a quarterly rebate to consumers based on tax levied on oil and gas companies. The bill will create the big oil windfall profits tax. It would charge a barrel tax equal to 50% of the difference between the current price of a barrel of oil and its pre-crisis average. The 2 lawmakers calculate that if the barrel sits at $120, the tax will raise again by about $45 billion a year, providing single filers with $240 annually and joint filers with $360 each year. The state of California has just reported that about half of those who qualify for California's middle-class tax refund have received their payments. It's because of the Franchise Tax Board. The state agency in charge of disbursing the payments says at least 6 million Americans direct deposits have been issued, and people have received about 2 million debit cards. So the inflation relief payments do vary, but if you haven't received your payment yet, don't worry, there's a lot of time to receive the missing stimulus money that you can get.
Yeah, yes, sir. Okay.
Can you comment on the Oversight Committee's report on the Washington Commanders football team, and how do you think the NFL should respond to what the investigation uncovered, and would it include, in your mind, Dan Snyder's selling the team?
Let me just say that I'm a sports fan, and what I love about sports is I don't have to get involved in policy. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the numbers. It's interesting that they've changed their names to the Commanders. I quite frankly have not read that report, so I cannot speak with any authority on it. But I would not be an expert in that regard. I do. I'm excited about the progress our San Francisco 49ers are making. I'm a big supporter of the Ravens. In fact, I think I told you this, but when my husband was assaulted and in that horrible situation, when he came out of surgery, my son was the first one to talk to him when he could talk, and he said, Mommy's on her way home on the plane from D.C., and the first thing he said coming out of surgery is, oh, she's going to be so happy because the Ravens won last night. That was Thursday Night Football. Yes, Jake?
Garoppolo's out, but we won't go there. But I could, on the omnibus,
yeah.
I mean, you've been a party to a number of these agreements.
Yep.
It's December 8th, so
Yeah.
and Shelby keeps saying you're 20
Yeah, I do. You remember
We're not
that?
working these things out at this point.
Yeah, as an appropriator myself, I know that left to their own devices, they can come to a conclusion and a fair one. What influence their leaders have on that decision to say they want to cut the DoD. Here's what it always is. We have a big defense number. As I said on the floor, we need a bigger defense number because not only to keep us qualitatively and technologically.
Deficit substantially. In our first year, over $300 billion, and this year, it's estimated to be somewhere in excess of $1.5 trillion, maybe as much as $1.7 trillion. So, we're going to spend the money wisely to buy American. For example, we're going to lower the cost of prescription drugs by letting Medicare negotiate prices with the drug companies. We've been proposing that for a long time.
Creating an even landscape for U.S. drivers heading into the busy Labor Day weekend. Data from AAA showed a national average gas price sits at $3.81 a gallon. This compares with $4.20 1 month ago. That remains well above the year-ago price of $3.18. Prices across the West Coast sit substantially higher than the national average, with drivers in Los Angeles seeing the highest recorded Labor Day gas prices ever at $5.25 a gallon. Kentucky taxpayers could also receive a $500 rebate from the state under a new bill that cleared the legislative committee. Under Senate Bill 194, individual tax filers from 2020 will receive a $500 rebate, and joint filers will receive a $1,000 rebate unless those individuals paid less than that amount in state taxes. If filers paid less than $500 or $1,000, they would receive a rebate of that lower amount. If they paid no state taxes, they would receive no rebate. The Senate Republican, the chairman of the committee, said the intent of the legislation was to address the recent spike in crushing inflation. McDaniel said in an official statement, "As our nation is experiencing the highest inflation in 40 years, it's important that lawmakers respond in a way that helps ease the burden on tax-paying people in Kentucky." McDaniel added that he expected those rebate checks to go out by the end of the summer should the legislation pass into law, with rebates totaling about $1 billion. The measure passed the committee unanimously, with all Republican lawmakers voting for it. The two Democrats on the committee were not present for the vote, with nearly $2 billion in projected surplus in the current fiscal year. Leadership of the Republican supermajority had already signaled their intent to leave much of this unspent in their two-year budget proposal, instead directing this toward tax cuts or the relief. New checks will be arriving very soon in the mailboxes for millions of people. There is an update for a full list of cities and states who are sending out stimulus checks. There is no denying the impact of the expanded child tax credit payments that parents received during the second half of 2021, which parents received hundreds of